Hello, good evening. Welcome back to the Bundesliga show. We're back tonight for a full Bundesliga fantasy football show. So, thank you all for tuning in. Hope everyone's doing well. First and foremost, Mark, welcome back to the Thursday show.
Yeah, it's been a while, hasn't it? Yeah, I was just saying to you guys before, obviously, I've been at a wedding over in the UK. So, yeah, good to be back for the fantasy football show and looking forward to some good tips from Runa today.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we've got a nice full show ahead of us. We'll use the screen so you can see everything that's going on whilst we're talking with Runa. But yeah, before we go into Runa, you've been a busy boy today, I believe, over at Bully News. How's it all been on transfer deadline day?
Yeah, it's been fun. I always think the deadline days are a lot of fun to cover. Although it hasn't been that eventful compared to previous deadline days, but yeah, we did see some pretty big deals go through. Akanji to Manchester City, Michael to Gladbach, and Diallo to Leipzig, and also Asta Branks leaving Wolfsburg for AC Milan on loan. So a few big deals, but I just love all the excitement and the feeling of like writing stories every fifth minute and like keep covering stories as they pop up.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, before we go into in terms of teams that have done well out of the market as an overall, who would you rate as maybe like a top three if you had to choose teams that have done best out of the market so far this summer?
I actually think Bayern have had a pretty good transfer window. If you look at the players they've brought in and also some of the players that they have offloaded, some of the players that didn't get much playing time anyway, who they actually managed to get a lot of money for, and obviously the Sadio Mane signing, it's a big one. De Ligt signing is a big one too, but also Gravenberg looks like a pretty good signing for them. So I think Salihamidzic has been doing a good job, and he's also been rewarded for it with a new contract. Of course, Dortmund have also brought in some pretty good signings, pretty good names. They've been hit a bit with bad luck, of course, with Sebastian Haller's cancer diagnosis. And they haven't actually been starting that well, I think. But if you look at the transfers they've made, it actually solid business all around. And in terms of some of the sides who I'm not that impressed with, I think Bochum, as we've already seen from the start of the season, have really struggled. Kevin Stöger is probably the only real signing I rate that they have made, and it looks like their squad is simply not fit for the Bundesliga this season.
Yeah, good stuff. What about you, Mark? What team has impressed you in the market, and what team do you think has had a bit of a stinker?
Yeah, I think I agree that Bayern Munich have just had a brilliant window, haven't they? I mean, apart from obviously losing Lewandowski, but at the end of the day, he is like 34 and they got 45 million euros for him. So it's not exactly a bad deal. You know, obviously they've managed to bring in Mane, who's 4 years younger, and, you know, he's not exactly started badly, has he? That's for sure. I think also offloading the likes, as Runa mentioned before, offloading the likes of Tanguy Nianzou for 60 million to Sevilla is pretty impressive. Chris Richards to Crystal Palace for 12 million. I don't think a lot of these players are worth even close to that, to be honest, in some ways. So as you say, Salihamidzic has done really, really well for me. I think, yeah, other teams that have done well, I think Leverkusen as well. Obviously, I think that the signing of Callum Hudson-Odoi is one that I'm really, really looking forward to seeing. Obviously, as an Englishman, you know, I think that's a really, really good signing on paper. Obviously, it's only a loan signing, but I still think that's really good. I think the fact they managed to keep Patrick Schick and some other, and Diaby as well, didn't lose any key players, but they haven't started that well, surprisingly. But I think we could see them come good further on in the season. I think, yeah, it's pretty clear the team that have had a nightmare, really, it's Bochum, isn't it? They've just had an absolute mare, really. Losing the likes of Bella Kotchap, Leach, and only really bringing in Stöger, as Runa said. Not very good at all. I think other teams that have probably not had a good window, perhaps. Another one that I think have had a good window is Freiburg. I think pretty much all of their signings add value to that team. I think despite losing Schlotterbeck, you know, I think they've replaced him well with Ginter. And obviously Grigoric is a good signing, in my opinion. Azar, Doan, and Chiera, despite the fact we've not seen him that much to sign him from St. Pauli. But yeah, I think a lot of teams have had pretty good deals. Probably Union Berlin have done okay as well. We know their strategy of, they like to sell on the better players. Obviously, they did lose Awoniyi, but I quite like the look of Petuk as well. I think he's done quite okay so far. And, the likes of Haberer is a good signing from Freiburg as well. I just think Union Berlin are like an example for a lot of teams in Europe for how to conduct a transfer window, to be honest, because they really do look for value and they get a lot of good quality signings and they seem to improve year on year, as we've seen on the pitch, really.
Yeah, good stuff. Well, we'll not delay too much longer because we've got a question already for Runa to get through, and we're obviously going to go through goalkeepers, defenders, midfielders, and strikers for you all to get some top advice and tips ahead of the next match week in the Bundesliga. Just a little bit of admin, just to remind everyone to please do obviously join in the conversation with us tonight. Obviously, if you've got questions for Runa, pop them in the chat now or do subsequently if you don't catch the live show. Please do drop us a like as well on the show. All these fantasy football shows have been doing really well. So yeah, pop us a like and see if we can hit 30 to 35 likes. And please do press that red button, subscribe to the channel. Another reminder, tweets going out very shortly actually, but obviously you won't know this. Myself and Mark are doing a watch along tomorrow evening. Dortmund versus Freiburg live on Over the Bars YouTube channel. Make sure you tune in tomorrow night. Should be a cracking game. So over to you, Runa. So we'll start with goalkeepers first and foremost. So let's get the picks going along the bottom for everyone to see. And yeah, talk us through the board.
Yeah, no surprise with my budget pick. That is Oliver Christensen still, and it remains the cheapest starting goalkeeper in the game. And I think he's actually done pretty well in terms of picking up points, especially considering Hertha's poor results. 25 points so far, and that's only 2 points less than Manuel Neuer actually, which shows that the point system with goalkeepers is pretty special in this game. And just another example that it doesn't really make sense to sign the most expensive goalkeepers in the game. So I think he still offers a lot of value for money, Christensen. And my mid-price pick is Manuel Riemann because he's really proven how important a goalkeeper can be. He's hit double figures in 2 or 4 match days so far. And that's quite impressive. Gets a lot of points from saved shots. Has also saved the penalty. And yeah, his ceiling is probably only second to Jan Sommers. Of course, I'm referring to Sommers' crazy points haul last week. Picked up 28 points against Bayern, which also shows that maybe it's not always a good idea to take a goalkeeper out if he's up against Bayern, because that means he will get to save a lot of shots. And in this case, it actually ended up with Sommer being the best player last match day in terms of points. And my premium pick is Mark Flecken, who I also believe I've mentioned before. I think if you want to invest a bit more in a goalkeeper from one of the upper half table teams, I think Flecken is the guy to go for. He's kept 3 clean sheets so far in 4 games, and he also usually does pretty well in terms of saved shots. Freiburg also, I mean, they concede more shots than the likes of Leipzig and Bayern and Dortmund. So I think Flecken is still a pretty good option for that price.
Good stuff. Before we move on to defenders, Mark, do you want to just pick up some of the questions that come in from the live chat and throw them Runa's way?
Yeah, absolutely. So we got a question in actually from Hemi Navas just before the show started, actually. Yeah. So yeah, hey guys, obviously, hey Runa, which goalkeepers would you recommend for the upcoming match day? So you've already kind of answered that. But yeah, do you think the Union strikers are too risky against Bayern? So do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, both Becker and De Sibacho, they're both in great form at the moment. And as we saw last week, Thuram, actually, another informed striker, actually did well against Bayern. But my personal opinion is that now that we have 5 transfers, I think it makes sense to sub out a player with a poor matchup. And it is a poor matchup on paper, at least. And yeah, with 5 transfers, then you can always bring your Union strikers back next week. So personally, I would maybe look for strikers who have easier matchups.
Yeah, and just a question for myself as well about goalkeepers. Alexander Shvolov, yeah, I had him in last week and he ended up with a shocker of -6. He completely cost my team pretty much. Would you recommend keeping him in again, or is he one to get out as quickly as possible, would you say?
Yeah, I would, because he's done well previously in the games previous to that one, and I also think it was kind of a freak game. Everything that Union threw at Schalke's goal just went in that game.
Yeah.
And yes, Swolov has made a few mistakes, but I mean, you get points from safe shots, and Schalke are likely to concede a lot of safe shots. So for the price, I still think he's a pretty good option.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And a question that I really liked as well, and I'm keen to know what your view is, Runa, but from Blue Danube Joe says, keen to see how next week's European competitions will affect the Bundesliga lineup. So do you think we could see big sweeping changes ahead of obviously the European football returning next week, or do you think we'll see full teams out this weekend?
I don't think it will influence much this week, but surely next week, and that's something to pay attention to, especially with teams like RB Leipzig and also Bayern to some extent. They rotated. I can imagine them rotating a lot up front, especially. They have a lot of good options up front, and also the likes of Eintracht Frankfurt, for example. So definitely something to keep an eye on from next week.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And just another question as well from Abdullah. Yeah. When is a good time to play the wild card? So what's your view on that?
I'm not really sure what he means.
Yeah, it might just be a bit of a miscommunication there from Abdullah.
Yeah.
So
yeah, if Abdullah, if you're watching, if you could just kind of clarify exactly what you mean by wildcard, because I think we don't really know that terminology, but maybe do you mean like
maybe?
Yeah, possibly. If you could just clarify that, Abdullah, then we can answer the question again once you do that. Yeah. Another question from Hannes as well, saying, would you get Hoffman back as he plays for Gladbach, who don't have midweek games? Yeah, that's a pretty good suggestion. What would you say to that?
I think that's a huge advantage for Gladbach, actually, compared to some of the other sides I mentioned before. And also, I think that increases their chances of getting good results in the Bundesliga. So it's definitely a good thing for them that they can focus on the Bundesliga. I actually think Hoffmann he suffered a bit of a dip in form, I think, in recent weeks. I don't know if it was that penalty miss that maybe influenced his confidence a bit. But I think he hasn't looked like himself recently. But then again, I have to say I have considered bringing him back because he is usually a very reliable fantasy asset. But looking at his last few performances, I would probably wait a week and see if he turns to his best form.
Yeah. But obviously Gladbach themselves going quite well in the league, so they are really. I think I was quite impressed with them last week against Bayern. The fact that I know they were quite lucky, but still to get a point against an on-form Bayern side is no mean feat, that's for sure.
Yeah, agreed. I think Gladbach have started well, so definitely one to consider. So good question, Hannes. So we'll move on to defenders before we get any more live questions in. But of course, if you got anything that's stuck in your brain about whether to swap a player out, please do not hesitate to ask us during the live show or afterwards. So Runa, defenders then, budget, mid-price and premium, and I shall try and get them up on the screen for everyone watching as well.
Yeah, my budget pick this week is Mitchell Weiser. Again, I think he's almost criminally underpriced in this game, and Werder have two very good fixtures coming up against Bochum and Augsburg. He plays as a wing back and has already provided 2 assists in the league, as well as scored a goal in the Pokal. So at that price, I think he's a very good option for the next few weeks. Of course, if you want to go a different way and pick a player in the same price category, you could choose Anthony Jung instead. His partner in crime on the other wing-back position for Werder. He's only owned by 1%, and he's a bit cheaper, even cheaper than Weiser. So sometimes that's a good thing to keep in mind, the percentage that owns the player. I mean, 1% ownership on Jung means that he's a very good differential, whereas people are probably more likely to have Beiser. And my mid-price pick is a bit of a gamble this week. Picking a Hertha player is always a gamble, fantasy-wise, and I think it's a pretty difficult game to predict that Hertha have coming up against Augsburg. They play on Sunday, which I think is an advantage because that gives a bit of flexibility, and it's nice to have a player to sub in at that point. And I think Martin Plattenhardt is a proven fantasy asset, and he's on set pieces for Hertha. So I think at 6.6 million, that's a quite good price for Plattenhardt. And if you're looking to bring in a player from that game for a bit of flexibility, I think he's a good shout. And if you want to go for a player with, I mean, roughly the same potential from Augsburg, I think Iago is a pretty good pick too. And yeah, then my premium pick this week is Borna Sosa, and I haven't actually been that impressed with him this season compared to his previous seasons. But of course, we all know that he's an amazing player and really good at going forward, being a defender. So he's been one of the best scoring players. He was one of the best scoring players last season, and now Stuttgart have a pretty good game on their hands against Schalke at home. So I think he's at least worth considering, especially because he's owned by just 2% of the managers. Of course, Stuttgart no longer have Kalajdzic, who was pretty important for Sosa's prospect of getting points because he threw in so many crosses for the tall man in there. But I still think he's a pretty good option at that price. And if you don't have the money for him, then you could consider Wagnerman, who also plays as a wing back for Stuttgart and who costs around 5 million.
Yeah, Wagnerman's had a good start to his to life at Stuttgart. I've been quite impressed with him. But yeah, Borna, I think we'll see the best of him soon, providing that he stays. Obviously, for deadline, has deadline day officially now closed in Germany? Yeah, so
5 o'clock local time, I think was the.
So yeah, so he should still be a member of the squad. Yeah. I think now with that kind of transfer speculation, he can just get down and get stuck into his football. I know he did want to move. I think it's quite obvious that was the case. I think Stuttgart felt inclined to at least keep one of him or Sasa Kalajdzic. So yeah, hopefully he can start whipping in some crosses and making the most of his talent because he has got bags of it. Just check for any more questions that's come up. Evening FBL Thinker, nice for you to check in. Hope you're doing well. Yeah, obviously Joe's mentioned Sasa without Kalajdzic. Big one to worry about for us for sure. I think we do have a question in here actually from Jeff, so just bring that up on screen here for you, Runa. So Jeff has asked, so I've got 4 defenders playing at the same time. Would like to use one from the later standalone matches. Should I just stick with Aaron Martin, or are there better suggestions, e.g. Plattenhardt?
Yeah, I think if I were you, Jeff, I would probably swap one out because 4 defenders playing at the same time. I mean, that's a lot of defenders, and you could use that flexibility, I think, to choose a different star player. So I think that makes a lot of sense to find an option that plays at a later point. So yeah, Plattenhardt is an option, I think, depending on how much you can spend. I also think Leipzig have some pretty good options. Maybe Raum is worth picking up at this stage. I mean, he was amazing for Hoffenheim last season, and he plays every week for Leipzig for a good team now, an even better team. So I think he's maybe a good shout, and also I think Henriks has done pretty well from the start of the season too, on the right side of the fence for Leipzig. And then also maybe consider the Gladbach options, Joe Skelly, if you have around those 7-8 million that Aaron costs to spend, and Bensebaini if you have a little more to spend.
Yeah, Scully played well against Bayern actually. Both the fullbacks did, to their credit. So yeah, maybe worth a shout. Right, on to midfielders then. Right into the kind of the higher positions, maybe where we start to get a lot bigger kind of risks or points. So yeah, Runa, run us through your budget, mid-price, and premium.
Yeah. Budget pick is Kevin Stöger this week, and he's actually one of my favorites picks, I'd say, because I think what he's done has been so impressive considering how poor Bochum have been. I mean, they've lost the first 4 games, and they now have 2 pretty good games coming up against Werder and Schalke. They surely need to take points from those 2. And Stöger is, I mean, he's very likely to play a key role there. I think he's been pulling the strings in midfield from the start of the season, and he's already picked up 39 points, which I think is crazy considering his team's poor run of form. So I think at a price of 5.9 million, he's a very, very good option this week. And yeah, if you go for a midfielder from Werder, if you believe more in them, then I think you could pick Romano Schmid maybe, who looks likely to start now that Leonardo Bittencourt has been ruled out. So Romano Schmid costs just around 5 million. Yeah, my mid-price pick is Jan Tillman, and yeah, I think I had to mention him at some point because as a fantasy manager, you just have to love a midfielder playing out of position as a striker, and that's exactly what Tillman is doing. And with Köln having a number of players out with injuries, I think he should be nailed on to start up front against Wolfsburg and in the weeks to come. And I haven't been that impressed with Wolfsburg actually under Nico Kovac so far. I think they haven't looked that good, and Tillman has a goal and an assist under his belt already. Picked up 15 points on match day 1 against Schalke, so he has proven that he can do very, very well. So I think at that price, he's maybe worth a shot. And yeah, my premium pick this week is Marco Reus, and I know he's a very popular pick, but I still want to mention him this week because I think he would be a really good player to start on Friday evening when Dortmund face Hoffenheim. I think he's had a pretty consistent and solid start to the season in terms of fantasy output. He's hit double figures in 3 or 4 games so far. So a pretty good player to own for the Friday night game, much like Vincenzo Grifo was last week, and that move really paid off.
Yeah, good stuff. So just to confirm for Abdullah then, Runa, did you say that Bittencourt had been ruled out for Werder Bremen for this weekend?
Yeah, he picked up an injury last week and isn't playing this time. So it looks like Romano Schmid will play. Of course, also Niklas Schmid could also play. That's actually I'm not that certain that it would be Schmid and not Schmidt. But surely Stöger. I'm a very big fan of Stöger this week.
Yeah, good stuff. And yeah, we'll go on to strikers then. So same format, of course. So yeah, lead us away, Runa, and I'll bring up the players as well.
Yeah, my budget pick is Niklas Füllkrug, who is priced at just 5.7 million. I think he's offered really good value for money so far. He's found the net 3 times in the league already this season. Werder are scoring a lot of goals, playing very offensive football, and they have 2 very attractive matchups coming up. So I think he's a very good option for that price. Mid price pick is Silas from Stuttgart. 10.4 million is probably a bit steep for him, but I think he's starting to look like the player he was before he suffered those terrible injuries. Looks like he's having fun playing football again, and he's just a fun player to watch. He has a lot of pace and great technical ability. Probably should have been a bit more clinical in front of goal last week against Köln, but yeah, I mean he gets to finish and gets to big chances. He's part of big chances. So I think against that Schalke defense, they look a bit heavy, and they conceded 6 times last week. So I think maybe he could hurt them a bit. And then my premium pick is Modest, because I think that he actually scored his first goal for Dortmund last week, and yeah, we all know that he's a proven Bundesliga goal scorer, and much like Reus, I think I really enjoy having a player to start on those Friday night games, and he's only owned by 5%, so maybe he could score again. I also kind of feel like Timo Werner could really start doing well now. He had that hat trick in the Pokal the other day. I know it was against pretty easy opposition, but maybe that was good for his confidence. And I mean, Leipzig just create that so many chances, and Werner is very likely to be involved in a lot of those.
Yeah, absolutely. And just one final question as well, coming in from Bibek. I think this is a good question, and one that I've also been wondering the answer to as well. What do you have to say about Patrick Schick? I had him on my team for the last 3 matches, and he has been nothing but a massive disappointment. Yeah, I would agree as well. I think, what do you have to say about that, Runa? Do you think there's anything serious, or is it just bad form?
I totally agree. I think it's maybe a case of, I mean, he probably just needs to score a goal. Again, he has missed some pretty big chances, and Leverkusen have been in poor form in general. But we all know that Schick is an amazing striker, and I kind of feel like if you have held on to him until now, then you should maybe keep him until maybe for a bit longer. I know that the Freiburg game this week is not that easy, but they actually have some pretty good fixtures coming after that one. And personally, I sold Frimpong last week, and that decision really came back to haunt me. And I know I'm not the only one who did that, because that made a lot of sense, looking at how Leverkusen had performed in the previous games. But I mean, Schick is a player who can really make a difference when he's on his game. And I actually think that Leverkusen's fixtures look pretty good. So if you feel like they turned a corner with that win over Mainz last week, then maybe he's worth holding on to.
Yeah, and one last question, I think, as well, and another good one in from Jeff. Yeah, is it worth the risk to play Olmo, Werner, or the very impressive last week Muani from Frankfurt instead of Sadio Mane? What would you say?
I mean, that would be a big gamble, because Mane is so many players have Mane in their teams. So if he doesn't do well and you pick someone else, then of course it's a big advantage for you. But then again, if he does well and scores a hat trick or a brace or something like that, and you don't have him and you went with a differential option, then that would really hurt you. So I'm not sure I would be ready to take him out, or I know I wouldn't be willing to take him out for Olmo, Werner, Muani at this point. But with that being said, I still think that especially Werner and Muani are pretty good picks too.
Yeah, good stuff. So I think we'll probably round up the show from there on in. So if you have caught the show whilst it's not been live, and subsequently in the meantime, please feel free to drop any of your questions and queries in the comment section below, and we'll make sure that we, as in Over the Bar or Runa, get to that and give you the answers as best we possibly can do. But for everyone that's tuned in tonight, thank you very much. Really appreciate your support. Hope you enjoyed the show and everything that we've provided in terms of Runa's tips. I'm sure myself and Mark will try and pay attention to those as best we can for this weekend. Quick reminder again, tomorrow evening, our watch along, Dortmund versus Hoffenheim. Whoever wins goes top of the Bundesliga. Huge game, at least overnight. Really looking forward to that one. Other than that, Mark, over to you to close up the show.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you enjoyed what you saw today, remember we do a lot of other work on Over the Bar as well. So follow our Twitter feed, which is @OverTheBarFB or @OverTheBarExtra. Remember to check out our main page as well, which is otbfootball.net. As I say every time, we've got lots of different articles coming on there, just about everything football related. Remember to check out Bully News as well, which is Runa's brilliance. I mean, I check it pretty much every day. So, yeah, it's definitely worth, if you're interested in your Bundesliga latest news, you've got to check that out. That's for sure. And then, obviously don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe because it helps us to keep progressing. We are progressing at a decent rate at the moment. So, keep your support going. And thanks for watching. As Rory said, see you guys tomorrow. See you then, guys.
Cheers all.
Bye-bye.